Two senators launched joint bill proposing massive adult site regulations. So after all the fear-mongering about the hub and getting them deplatformed, now they're coming back with this. Now the Republicans and the Democrats are teaming up to take down the great evil that is, no, not COVID, not these bullshit government lockdowns, not the just god-awful security and faith in the elections. No, not that, not that. Oh, we got to go after the porn sites again. Because there's literally nothing more important in this world they could be doing. U.S. Senators Ben Sasse, Republican, and Jeff Merkley, Democrat, introduced a bipartisan bill Friday calling for extensive new regulations on adult websites, which hopefully what this will do is just force the adult industry out of the U.S. completely and they just base themselves somewhere else. That would be ideal. But this is the shining example of why I fucking hate both sides. Every single time I'm ripping on Republicans, I always have one of these cucks. Like, oh, why don't you punch left instead? They're the real enemy. What do you get by punching right? And then they do shit like this. The only time Republicans get off their asses and do anything, it's to team up with Democrats to fuck everyone up the ass. That's just how they operate. Otherwise, dude, you could give them the presidency, the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court, and they will do nothing. They'll do none of the things they promised they would do. Or if they do anything, they do the shit Democrats would do, like keep growing the government. And then they fearmonger, like, oh, if we get out of office, we're not going to be able to do all this. Oh, the shit you weren't going to do anyway? Sure. So once again, the second example this week of Republicans selling everyone out is upon us. First, there was that bullshit, the bipartisan COVID relief bill that was more about pushing through pet projects like equity of statues and the copyright mafia demanding that streaming be a felony. All that stuff that never should have even been allowed in that bill in the first place. And now they're cucking out on this too. Now they're going after the porn sites, once again under the excuse of, oh, but think of the chillins. And see, so the Republican side of this bipartisan bill is think of the chillins. The Democratic side of this bipartisan bill is think of the whammons. Dubbed the Stop Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, aka SISSY, very appropriately named. The bill was prompted, according to an announcement from Sasse's office, by disturbing reports of how videos and photos are uploaded to websites like Pornhub without the consent of individuals who appear in them, haunting and traumatizing the victims. You know what the collateral damage for this is going to be? Literally any website that users upload content to, including Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Oh, but they're not even gonna, no one's considering that until it bites them in the ass. Without detailing the reports it references, yeah, that's a key one right there. I've seen those accusations, and it almost always ends up being a case of like, oh, this woman consented to filming this porno, and then she withdrew her consent after the fact or something like that. Like, no, see, just because some governments were cucked enough to believe that that's how sexual assault works, like she can consent to sex and then withdraw it later after the act is done and say you raped her. But the business world didn't used to work that way. Like I could consent to do some work for someone, and the contract specifies that they own all the work I do for them. And then 2 years later, I could get mad. It's like, that's not fair. Why is this guy making money off of all the work I did? And I'd withdraw consent. No one would care about me because I'm not a hot chick. So without detailing the reports, it references the announcements would, by all appearances, be in response to the charges filed Tuesday against Pornhub parent company MindGeek, alleging that the company knowingly hosted and profited from the non-consensual videos over which website Girls Do Porn was prosecuted last January, and to which performer-producer Ruben Andre Garcia pleaded guilty Thursday to conspiring to produce in a separate ongoing federal case. Now, this is what they should be doing with Pornhub, by the way. If Pornhub is guilty in doing anything actually illegal, then they need to be prosecuted just like Girls Do Porn was and let the courts handle this. But instead, these politicians decided to strong-arm the payment processors into dropping them. And now they're using that to force this law through, despite no actual prosecution being brought against Pornhub that I know of. It's almost as if they know they have no case, but they want to screw them over anyway. Now, on the plus side, before you guys get too scared, for the most part, Pornhub was just an aggregator anyway. They had a few of their own individual brands, like Brazzers was part of the whole MindGeek family and all that, but most of the content on Pornhub didn't originate from Pornhub. So all that stuff you'll be able to find elsewhere. But this shit, man, I'm starting to think that if you want to have a decent website and you want to keep it decent, what you're going to have to do is lock it down so that you have to log in to see anything on the site whatsoever. Basically put the whole site on the deep web. And no one who's not logged in would have access to any of that content. So you can't see any of it unless you intend to see it. That was one of the biggest flaws of Pornhub. You didn't have to make an account. Anyone can just surf to Pornhub and see all those videos. That's going to have to change in the future. You're going to have to lock down your stuff behind a login and preferably close the community down completely and make it invite only. That would be my advice. So no fucking Karen will just accidentally stumble upon your site. They may stumble upon the placeholder page that they see like a sad panda on or something, but they wouldn't be able to browse any of the contents of the site. They wouldn't even know what's in there unless someone told them. That's what's going to have to happen. And then, like I was talking with Bob about this, another advantage of this system is if you have a pretty much like locked down private site like this, if anyone who you didn't authorize to be there is ever caught in there, you can sue them for hacking. You can sue them for unauthorized access and all sorts of other things. So next time one of these politicians, they find their way to your site and they start complaining about it, you may be able to sue them for quite a bit of money. So now let's see what a dumpster fire this is. Among the regulations the new bill seeks to enact are requiring platforms hosting pornography to within 2 weeks of enactment, require any user uploading a video to verify their identity. This is basically the start of Western Real ID. So China already does this with a lot of things where you have to verify your like real identity to do anything. I mean, shit, I think China just required you have to verify your identity to play online video games. The US, once again, using China as a scapegoat, while they do the same, if not worse than China. This is the first step. They just want to test internet real ID with porn sites first. And if this works, they're going to expand it to everything else. Require any user uploading a video to the platform to also upload a signed consent form for every individual appearing in the video. That's a completely worthless requirement, by the way, because they're just going to withdraw the consent after the fact. Dude, we've seen this in family court with prenups. A signed prenup that the two lawyers were there to witness and everything gets thrown out because all the woman has to do is cry and say that, but he threatened me. He said he wouldn't marry me unless I signed it. I was coerced. He coerced me into signing it, and now it's not valid anymore. They do the same shit with these consent forms. everyone in the video could sign a consent form on camera in the presence of both your lawyer and theirs, and they would still get it thrown out by crying the crocodile tears and complaining that they were coerced into it. Every single time that it works out that way. Now, getting the consent forms themselves shouldn't be too hard. At least if it's a professional production, they already have those. If it's an amateur one, it may be a little bit more difficult. You may have to download some cookie cutter consent forms, but we'll see how this works. Creating a private right of action against an uploader who uploads a pornographic image without the consent of an individual featured in the image. Ah, damn. Again, this is just like the Real ID thing. This is the first step towards completely removing Section 230. Everyone is going to be held legally liable for what they upload now. Requiring platforms hosting pornography to include a notice or a banner on the website instructing how an individual can request removal of a video if an individual has not consented to it being uploaded on the platform. Now, this is bullshit because Pornhub already did that. Remember, Pornhub has always been more of an aggregator than anything else. Videos were constantly getting pulled off of Pornhub because, usually these cam whores, they have pay sites, right? So a lot of the videos that got uploaded to the hub were from pay sites, and eventually, when the pay site owners found out, they filed a claim with the hub, and it was taken down. Dude, I think hundreds, if not thousands of videos were being taken down on a daily basis on that site in its prime. So this really makes you wonder. So why didn't they take down all these the videos of these alleged victims who didn't consent to having their videos up there? Real interesting, isn't it? It's almost as if these quote-unquote victims consented to being filmed for another company like Brazzers or something, who now owned all the rights to the video, and they were like, nah, bitch, we're not going to let you revoke consent after the fact, and it stayed up. Interesting thing to think about right there. Now, prohibiting video downloads from these platforms to be in place within 3 months of the enactment of the legislation. Yeah, good luck with that. There's literally nothing you can do to prohibit someone from downloading videos. Dude, you think if this was possible, Mandalorian wouldn't be showing up on the fucking Pirate Bay within an hour or two of airing on Disney, goddammit. It's never gonna work. Requiring platforms hosting pornography to offer a 24-hour hotline staffed by the platform for individuals who contact the hotline to request removal of a video that has been distributed without their consent. So another cost that they're trying to foist on the platform itself. What's going to happen is these platforms, all these porn sites, the vast majority of them already are leaving the U.S. In fact, even Pornhub was based in Canada, so Pornhub wouldn't really be affected by this bullshit anyway. So what's going to happen is I'm sure that these U.S. politicians are going to say, like, oh, if you want to operate within the U.S., you have to follow these rules. And they're just the Pornhub would probably, if I was them, you know what I'd do? I would just say, all right, that's fair. And then I would have IP blocking instituted. So if anyone tries to access the site from a US-based IP address, instead of pulling up the site, it would pull up instructions on how to use a fucking VPN. That's what I would do. And they're requiring the removal of flagged videos within 2 hours of such a request. Yeah, now this is going to run into the same problems that DMCA. Now, what if someone falsely flags a video? It doesn't matter. They're legally required to take it down. These guys are putting in this flaw, this backdoor on purpose. They want to make the site be legally required to take down any flagged video within 2 hours. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to get their armies of Karens to flag every single video on the site. And they legally have to take them down. Requiring platforms to use software to block a video from being re-uploaded after its removal, which must take place within 6 months of the enactment of the legislation. Yep. Remember the EW was talking about something similar. What they call not a takedown request, a stay down request. Upload filters. You know, all the things that even the EU decided, like, yeah, we're not going to do that. That goes too far. The US is once again going to use porn sites as the testing ground for these stay down requests and upload filters. While pointing to China and the EU and saying, oh, look at those guys destroying the internet, doing these bad things. How many more times am I going to have to be proven right on this before people finally learn? Every time you see the US virtue signal and like point at China, like, look at what those evil Chinese are doing. They're splitting the internet in two. I can guarantee you the US is already planning worse. They just want everyone looking at China so we don't notice when they implement it. Directing the FTC to enforce violations of these requirements? You're not going to be able to do that if they're based outside of the US, which again, the vast majority of adult sites aren't based in the US for good fucking reason. Creating a database of individuals who have indicated they do not consent, which must be checked before new content can be uploaded to platforms. Okay, what if the individual consented to the creation of that video, which is now owned by someone else? Oh, I guess that doesn't matter, huh? This may actually destroy the entire porn industry in America, really. Yeah, because there's still, even though most websites are hosted outside of the US, there still is a filming industry in the US, but maybe not for much longer if this shit keeps up. Instructing the Department of Law, don't call it justice, that's an affront to justice, to promulgate rules on where this database should be housed and determine how to connect victims with services to include counseling and casework. Gotta employ more bloat positions. And establishing that failure to comply with this requirement will result in a civil penalty to the platform with proceeds going towards victim services. And all these platforms are just going to move outside of the US and it's not going to be a problem anymore. This is a law that in the end really doesn't have any teeth, but it's just real scary seeing some of the things they're pushing in there to just use it as a testing ground for the greater internet. Real ID, notice and stay down. Going after individual creators that upload things to platforms. Oh, that's already kind of happened in really extreme cases. Yeah, this is crazy, man. And there's also other language in this bill that's not covered in this particular article that covers like images, drawings, things like that. So even hentai may not be safe from this, honestly. We'll see. Now, there's a reason why if you actually value freedom of speech and freedom of expression, your website is not going to be based in the US. America is one of the worst countries in the world to host a website if you actually value freedom of speech and expression. How sad is that? Commented SISEA in the announcement of the bill, human dignity matters. Why don't you actually practice some of it then? A decent society has an obligation to fight sexual exploitation and human trafficking. Yeah, more human trafficking, of course. Of fucking course. Yeah, like I think Ricada went over this quite often. Like every time the Super Bowl comes to a town, they always use more human trafficking to crack down on massage parlors and all that. It's like, oh, every Super Bowl, twice as many like 15-year-old girls as the entire population of this damn town are trafficked through this for sexual services, and they never provide any actual proof of it. They just throw out big numbers because no one's willing to argue against it. If you call them on their bullshit and demand they actually produce evidence of their bullshit claims, they'll label you as a pedophile or a pedophile defender. It's like, oh, why are you defending sex traffickers, huh? It's just like we were talking about earlier when these politicians attach unrelated things to must-pass bills. They wait until a bill comes out that nobody would dare vote against and attach a bunch of extra garbage to it that has nothing to do with the original bill because it would be political suicides to vote against it. And it's the same thing here. As soon as you slap the sexual exploitation and human trafficking label on something, it becomes impossible to argue against it. Our bill is aimed squarely at the monsters who profit from rape. No, it's not. That's the excuse you're using to destroy the entire internet. You are just using victims as a weapon to bludgeon your political enemies. Washington ought to be able to come together to combat human trafficking and make this right. So now anyone who's against this, they're going to smear as being pro-human trafficking. If you just demand they show some evidence, then okay, let's go through all these reports and cases that triggered this bill. Oh, so you're saying you support human trafficking? Every minute you stall, 9 million young 10-year-old girls are being trafficked. We need to act on this right now. And this guy is stonewalling us. Because of him, billions of young girls are being raped every second. That's the kind of bullshit we're dealing with. So added Merkley, the posting of intimate photos and videos without participants' consent is a massive invasion of privacy and drives shame, humiliation, and potentially suicide. Last I checked, revenge porn is already illegal. Why don't you fucking dipshits try enforcing existing laws first? Well, that's a dumb question. I know the answer to that. The reason we have so many duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate laws on the books is because these do-nothing, worthless waste of oxygen politicians want something to attach their name to. They want to, when they're finally voted out of office, they want this to be their legacy. Oh, look at this anti-sex trafficking bill I sponsored and got through. Never mind that there's already like 20 identical ones on the books. This one's got your name attached to it. While some online platforms have recently announced steps to change some practices, much more needs to be done. We must ensure that not another single life of a child, man, or woman's is destroyed by these sites. How about we make sure that not another single life of a child, man, or woman is destroyed by your bullshit laws? More people have been fucked over by the government than by criminals, for God's sakes. So this is what we're dealing with. Once again, the Republicans cuck out and show their true colors and team up with the Democrats to ruin things for the rest of us again. The only time the Republicans ever do anything is when it's to team up with the Democrats to fuck us all over. And you're never going to be able to convince me otherwise. Just look at the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. They had 2 years to get shit done. And I'm not even blaming Trump for this. Trump tried. But the fucking trad cuck neocon Republicans stood in his way. Remember when Obama was president and the Republicans kept having show votes that would never go through anyway to repeal Obamacare? And then Trump got elected and they finally had a chance to repeal Obamacare. Oh, maybe we want to think about this first, guys. Yeah, fuck off. These dickless cucks are never going to do anything of value. The only time Republicans have any value is when they're the opposition party, when they tell us all the shit they would do if they were in power, and then they never do any of it. So don't trust either side. They're both shit. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.